Welcome back, everybody, to another Office Hours episode with Produce8. Now, we have some really exciting news about Produce8 that we've kind of hinted at in previous updates and previous Office Hours, and that is the official launch of Produce8's MSP Partner Program. So here with me today to explain how the Partner Program works and the advantages and the opportunities for you as an MSP is, of course, Marco La Vecchia. Marco, how are you doing?
I'm great, and yourself?
I'm doing wonderful today. Things are busy, but that means things are moving along and going well.
Good. Well, it's nice to be with you today.
How are you?
I'm very good. Pretty excited. As you mentioned, the launch of our partner program is really something that we've been working on over the last few months. And my background's been in the MSP space now for over 20 years. So when I have something that I can introduce to a lot of friends of mine that are in the industry of a few thousand partners that I've worked with over the years, I would say it's pretty exciting times.
Well, and pretty much everybody behind the scenes at Produce8 has some type of MSP background, including some pretty big players in this industry.
Yeah, we got a couple of, I would say some veterans that have been in the MSP space, such as Chris Day, who's founder of IT Glue and ScalePad, and Mark Scott, who founded Enabled Technologies and fully managed one of the largest MSPs that I actually work with just previously to come into Produce8, and Joel Abramson, who's an MSP veteran himself. He's our CEO. So we definitely have a very good background and understanding of what partners are looking for today.
So I've had the opportunity to talk to you guys about Produce8 for quite a while now, because I think you guys first approached me back at IT Nation probably 3 years ago to kind of give you my opinion and take a look at the thing. And you've done some pivots since then, some really interesting pivots. And I think what you've ended up with is really cool in terms of how it's different from other products that, there's no other product really exactly like this. So you've made it different enough that it meets the needs, I think, of everybody, not just the employer, not just the employee, not just the MSP. But for those of our audience who are not familiar with Produce8, give me the quick elevator pitch of what Produce8 is before we move into what the partner program is.
Yeah, Produce8 is a work analytics platform that helps individuals and businesses increase productivity. Pretty simple, isn't it? The only thing is that most people understand that they do have a productivity problem. All the data that's being shared today in the industry, it's almost on a daily basis in terms of when you see reports of businesses struggling or economic data showing that productivity is on the decline, both in Canada and the US and many countries around the world. So we feel that Produce8 is positioned very well to address a major problem in today's economy and market. And we really feel that MSPs are positioned well to go out and start having this conversation about productivity and employee experience with their customers.
And one of the things I love about Produce8, because you can very quickly slide into the big brother type situation with the employer versus employee collection of this productivity data. But the way you guys have done it kind of eliminates that big brother feeling and allows the culture to not suffer from this productivity data being collected.
Yeah, absolutely. We are anti-monitoring. We know that there's monitoring tools out there. If somebody were to give us a call and say, we're interested in Produce8, we want to monitor our employees, or, our customers are looking for a monitoring solution, that's not us. We're all about employee wellness, increasing productivity. Like, this application actually does help businesses increase dollars to the bottom line. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We spend time with our MSP partners and then with end user customers as well, showing them different types of ROI models in terms of the benefits by leveraging and utilizing Produce8. And so we're not here to monitor people. This is to give employees and businesses insights into their business in terms of what's going on. Our COO, who's also an MSP veteran, Janice Siddons, She uses the platform to see whether the business, and she, very simple. She looks at it as, are we green, yellow, and red in all the different areas that we want to pay attention to? And that's really kind of the insights that, you'll get with this platform.
Yeah, it gives the employer, the business, the anonymized generic data of what they need to know in terms of overall productivity, right? In terms of applications and whatnot, meetings, that kind of thing. But then it gives the individual employee almost like a productivity coach for them to be able to increase their own personal productivity and, like you said, well-being.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like when you're at work nowadays, like we have different types of applications and SaaS products that help you out with so many different things that people use. It could be an exercise application, it could be your banking system that you use. Everybody has a different tool for helping them out. What we notice and what we realize in the marketplace is that we spend so much money on employees. The biggest cost, according to any kind of business, is employees and that asset. Where IT, for instance, is only about 5% of business spend. The employee side of the business is 75% of the employee spend. So we actually feel that there's a huge opportunity right now for MSPs that we can kind of help them get into that employee experience and productivity space where businesses are willing to spend a lot of money to support their employees. And with the application, there's really nothing out there. There's nothing that's in the market today that you can walk into a business and say, hey, listen, we can help your employees get actually better in terms of how they work. But also ensuring that the wellness of that employee, that you have insights into what's going on in your business. We'll talk about it a little bit later on, but we actually have a component of our platform that's called sentiment. I always feel that any company that I ever worked with, understanding your employee score in terms of how people are feeling, the survey that goes out, once or twice a year to get a capture on how are we feeling. And typically it's the HR department that sends that out. A lot of the times businesses have a hard time getting people to fill in that information. And then what happens is that the business actually has no insights in terms of what's going on in their organization. With our platform and through our sentiment application, it gives businesses real-time information just in terms of how people are feeling on it every day on how they're working in that company. Now, just imagine how powerful that is, right? That you can be paying attention to your employees. You can understand what's going on. You can see, for instance, whether people are burning out. You can correlate between how much time people are working and how they're feeling. And our application will actually tell you if you have a certain percentage of your employees that are at the burnout stage. And then you can be proactive as a business to say, listen, you know what? We have to come in there and we have to help our business. We have to help our employees. And there's something that we need to do. Currently today, there's absolutely nothing that businesses can get insights into that. So that's just one sliver in terms of what our platform brings to the market. And that's why we're so excited about what we're launching.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy to tell. I think it's easy to tell that we're both excited about this because I really like what you guys have done with Produce8. But our audience today is not here to talk about Produce8, the product, so much as how this, gets integrated into their MSP Partner Program, how they create an opportunity with their clients to help their clients improve productivity. And by the way, I think this is huge for this reason. I think that we have gotten to the point where MSPs should be acting not just as virtual CIOs or virtual CISOs, but also virtual CTOs, where they're actually going out and finding the products, the tools that are going to help the client's business move forward. Not just management and maintaining anymore,
Correct.
But they're actually going in as a consultant to improve the client's business in terms of productivity, output, profitability, whatever. And that's what you guys have now built with the MSP Partner Program for Produce8. So let's get into more of that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's touch base on what you just brought up because I think it's critical and I think it's important. We really believe that, and some of our marketing strategies over the next couple of months are going to be focused around the VCIO play, the CISO play. It could be a technical account manager, and my previous life before coming to Produce 8, we ran a very large $100 million MSP business. We always struggled, just like any other MSP that's out there, on how do we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. And most MSPs, and even ourselves, as successful as we were, we look like everybody, like MSPs, and I challenge MSPs, go take a look at 10 competitors in your marketplace and tell me how different you look from everybody else. And I really think that, the timing of this program and bringing this solution to market, especially focused on the MSPs, is absolutely perfect right now, because MSPs need to differentiate themselves. It's so critical, right? And I actually believe that if you bring Produce 8 along with your IT managed services portfolio into a client's environment and explain to them how the two fit in together and the value of what they can bring to a business, it not only helps with acquisition strategies, but it's also going to help them with retention. And we know that retention is always critical. Like, MSPs spend so much money and time trying to acquire a new customer, where sometimes they leave. And what do they leave? They typically leave because, somebody showed them something that's a little bit different. They got a better price and all of that kind of stuff. And an MSP really has to articulate and show value. And so the VCIO play here becomes critical. And to your point, we used to encourage our VCIOs at our previous MSP that, you don't only have to talk about Brightgauge reports or how many tickets we resolved for a client and the technologies that you're using, but what is the future? What does the technology roadmap look like? And it doesn't necessarily always have to be what's in the portfolio of the business. They could recommend other solutions and technologies. I think that this solution fits in really, really nice, because it's not heavy lifting. You don't need to hire a whole bunch of different administrators to manage the Produce 8 platform. Once you deploy it and the customer is utilizing it, that's it. It's like this touchless car wash, and the MSP is generating recurring revenue. But more importantly, they're adding so much critical value to the customer that we know that it will help with not only increasing their recurring revenue, but retention rates.
Awesome. So let's get more into this in terms
Sure.
of how this affects the MSP and their clients.
Sure, and I touched base on this before, and the issue that we're seeing right now in the marketplace is everybody is taking a look at work productivity, right? You're starting to see organizations now hiring chief productivity officers. These are titles that we never heard of before.
Yeah.
And why is that, right? It's that shift to remote work, right? It's a change in terms of behavior, and there's a major impact in terms of the technology, in terms of what's that impact having on customers, right? Like, I've always said this: do MSPs actually realize, like, with all the solutions and technologies they roll out to the client, what's the impact to that customer? Like, is it helping on productivity, right? And I would say that most of the times nobody can really answer that question. But with Produce 8, you can roll this out. Any project that an MSP is rolling out to a client, you can actually measure what's the impact, and is it productive? And you can almost go back to a customer and show a little bit ROI. And so right now, the timing is actually perfect. And we actually think, like, this is $1 trillion market opportunity for MSPs, because the nice thing about our solution is that it's not vertical specific. It's not, geared towards just one profile of customer. This is anybody from a one user environment to thousands of employees that can use Produce 8. And that's where we feel going in and uncovering and delivering the insights to the customers is going to be key. When an MSP actually goes in and has that conversation with a client about productivity, most customers are going to say, I'm very interested, right? Like, tell me more about it. Like, we're not coming across anybody that's saying, I'm not interested in that, because the cost associated with hiring people, maintaining those people, and all that kind of stuff is exorbitant. So businesses are willing to have that conversation. And I think because the MSP has such a a tight relationship with their customers, or at least that they hope so, then going in and saying, hey, listen, we can actually provide you with a solution that gives you, we're going to be able to provide you with information that will say, listen, how much money, how much meetings are costing you on a daily basis, or how much time you're spending on calls, or what's the sentiment of the organization, or even on your applications, how much are you spending and who's using the applications. We call these organization analytics. And we think that as an MSP goes in and starts having this conversation and shows the client the data, that they're going to start opening up a lot of conversations and a lot of opportunities with their customers.
Yeah, and it looks like, you have it on the slide here. You're uncovering a $1 trillion market. And I think part of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that MSPs are tapping into a type of customer that traditional enterprise software or enterprise processes that had to be done by people just can't be done at the scale of these smaller SMB clients. And so what you guys have done is created something that now the MSP can take into these small businesses where this type of analysis was not able to be done before.
Correct.
You have large enterprises that have whole departments that do this. An SMB, a store down the street or a manufacturing place around the corner is not going to have the resources to do this type of work. But now you've created an application that kind of does it all for them.
Correct. And I think how all of those large organizations are doing it as well is it's a lot of surveys, spreadsheets,
right,
data, and siloed applications that they're using to try and pull and get some semblance of a story in terms of what's going on with the business. I would say that probably the majority of the time, the information is probably extremely inaccurate. And so now that you can actually go in, deploy this and leave it there and have all your employees use it, we look at it from a three-tiered approach, both from the employee, the teams, and organization. The organization typically sets the objectives, and then after all the information has to kind of push down and disseminate across the business. But what's really interesting is that if you can kind of get some information and data points in terms of what's going on in the business, then we really feel that that's where a business can make a change. And that's what's so critical and important about the application. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about why do we think there's such an opportunity here for the MSP? And if we kind of take a look at this model, and even going back to kind of like my history in terms of my background over the years of selling, remote monitoring and management to MSPs, 20 years ago, we know that majority of the MSPs today typically sit in the first two quadrants here, where they're selling managed IT services wrapped around with some sort of flavor of security, and then they started migrating into cloud applications. And I would say 95% of the MSP market is typically in these two first quadrants, and the businesses haven't necessarily evolved. You are getting there are MSPs that have made the transition to become an MSSP, transition their business. The investment, the cost, the risk associated with that is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people didn't make the migration. But now as we kind of get into this and we start seeing the top MSPs in the marketplace, you take a look at some of their websites, what they're bringing to market, it really starts transitioning into employee experience. A lot of companies like ServiceNow, as an example, really kind of focused in this area. Large MSPs invested into a solution like ServiceNow, because they have those types of components, but the cost associated with that and rolling out a solution like that, it really doesn't fit into the SMB space, right, for MSPs. And so with Produce8, by going into this and differentiating themselves and focusing on that employee experience and having those conversations with their customers, that's where we feel is really kind of like the next horizon for MSPs to kind of go in and introduce a solution like this. And we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of an investment, right? Our licensing model is not expensive. Like I said before, you don't need a whole bunch of people to go in and support the strategy. This is really kind of like a sales and a business strategy along with making an investment in technology.
Yep.
So when we kind of take a look at this, as the MSPs are actually going to go into market and start having the conversations with the clients, I could probably talk about 100 different scenarios on where Produce8 will actually fit in and have a solution for a customer. I look at this, and I've been talking about this a little bit more with my team and people in the organization, is that it's not so much that every business has a glaring problem. It's kind of like, I refer to it as, there's an issue. It could be meetings. It could be on collaboration tools. It could be productivity. It could be we have burnout. It could be there's so many different aspects within a business that could be causing problems. Where Produce8 will actually kind of come in and help you understand how technology is impacting you guys as a business and getting the insights into that. Is that it's not so much that we have to say we have to get rid of everything. Produce8 is not saying that you have to get rid of every meeting that's going on in a business. It's to make you think a little bit about, for instance, having that extra potato chip, right? If I use the analogy of a diet, right? Like a meeting that takes place in a business, especially pre-pandemic and post-COVID and all that kind of stuff, we know that through work from home and all that kind of stuff, businesses and people, meetings just shot up. And that's just a result of everybody working from home. But making it so easy to throw a meeting into somebody's calendar. Businesses actually need to recalibrate themselves a little bit in terms of understanding, how do we need to work? The old adage of, hey, listen, I have 9 meetings going on in my calendar today, and some people say that's a good day of work. I disagree with that, because if I have 9 meetings in my calendar, I can't get anything done, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about, is to rethink about how you work. And as MSPs can go in and have this conversation with a customer, I think it's extremely valuable. And they don't have to be experts, right? This is just about getting insights in terms of what I'm doing. And so by understanding what's going on and how technology is impacting the business, that's where we really kind of feel that the changes happen. And once you start seeing what's happening, then you can actually start making the changes in terms of how you work.
Yeah, and that's an important point, is that the MSP doesn't have to become a productivity expert, because Produce8 does that as the tool. They simply need to show the employer, the client, how this is going to affect the productivity, not necessarily show them how to do it.
That is correct. And you know, I'll use the analogy of, if some people are familiar with the new map, you know, for dietary purposes, it helps you understand what's going on and how you're eating and the exercises that you're doing and setting in your goals and all that kind of stuff. Our application works on the same premise. I can actually use the application and set up my own goals in the system. That this says I want to only have X amount of time per day in meetings, or I want to spend a certain amount of time in our collaboration tools, whether it's Team or Slack. I can make the changes to my day, and then I can correlate that to see kind of like how I'm feeling and how I'm working, and do I feel I'm actually more productive? And so if we kind of take a look at it, like everybody, if you go across anybody within any business and you ask them what are the applications on their phone, there's so many different apps like this that do so many different things, but they're not focused on work. And when you think about that, that's crazy, right? Because work, you know, this is where you make an income. This is where you get paid. This is where business are running revenues and have targets to meet and all that kind of stuff. Why wouldn't you want to deploy something like this in your business?
Right.
And without having Produce8, you don't have visibility. It's almost like an RMM, right? Like, you know, when we didn't have an RMM, we were all break fix and we all reactive. It's kind of the same thing with Produce8. You get insights in terms of what's going on. It's not necessarily the IT side, but it's the employee experience side. And once you have that information that comes into you and you start seeing what's going on, you can make the change within your business and your organization. And we feel that the idea here is that there's a feature, there's a value proposition, there's ROI for whatever type of employee you are within an environment. We call them the knowledge workers, the ones that are working in front of their PCs, and are being disrupted, and feel that, they're looking for something that can kind of help them, have better work days. And so when we look at this, as I mentioned before, we have our executives, we have our managers, we have the employees, and there's different components in terms of where our technology goes in and makes a big impact to their day.
So I love the last slide you had up, and it mentioned visibility, right? Because one of my favorite Peter Drucker quotes is, "What gets measured gets managed." And that is so true. And I've found it in so many situations, even going back to my own MSP, because one of the key points that I saw growth in my business was when we started putting the ARR number or the MRR number on a screen in the office at the top in red, so that we could see what our MRR was every single day to see if we were adding to it or not. And that was, looking at these numbers and having insight into these numbers, being able to collect them is key to being able to build a system or a process around managing it.
Absolutely. You can't make any change without the insights and the information coming back to you, right? So it's just like anything from a tool that we've used in the MSP space for years. Now what we're doing is we're just shifting a little bit and saying, we're going to start giving a solution that's going to help business get insight in terms of how they're working and what's going on within their business. It's like, I've had conversations, and actually just yesterday I was having a conversation with a CEO of a furniture company, and his business has evolved and it's changed so much over the last 10, 15 years, where they used to have a lot of people, in a factory in the US on the floor, where now everything is coming in overseas. He has the same amount of employees, but they're all in front of computers, because everything is all web-based and data-driven and all of that kind of stuff. So for him, understanding what's going on and how he can help them is so critical and important, because he wants to keep the people around, loves the employees that work for him, but wants to make sure that, hey, listen, I want to make sure that when we decide that we're going to make a decision on the technology, that's not having a negative and reverse effect. And he views Produce8 as something that could come in and help him out. So if you think about it from an organization standpoint, the value of our organization analytics that gives them insights in terms of cost of the meetings, and actually seeing a dollar figure, that how much money that they're spending monthly in meetings, and ways that he can reduce costs associated with the business. The ROI was so compelling to him that it was absolutely no brainer. Like when he kind of took a look at this, and even from the standpoint of whether it's the applications or sentiment, all of those have a significant ROI component to any kind of business. And MSPs will actually teach them. It's not very hard, but we actually have the ROI calculators that MSPs can actually use and sit in front of a customer to say, if we were to actually reduce your meetings by 10% or 15% and help you with technology distraction and the collaboration tools, and putting a proper system in place and how to use those technologies, we know that we can have a positive effect in increasing productivity. And we still use the component that we can, with Produce8, we can give back employees 90 minutes a day. And really, the way that they get that is by utilizing the technology. And once you understand how you're working on a daily basis and changes that you can make, what could I do with an extra an hour and a half a day? Trust me, Eric, I could probably do quite a bit within that time.
It's like a Fitbit, but for your productivity.
Absolutely, right? I've used that many times, and I think it's a great analogy, right? Like it's, if I know I have a goal, to your point, on your ARR that you guys used to have on the board, if I know I have a goal and I see it, then the dopamine in your head actually changes and forces you to say, hey, listen, I'm trying to get there. It's 10,000 steps a day. It's 1,600 calories that you're burning. There's different things and goals. And so, yeah, like it's very important. And that's why you have the ability to set goal settings in your applications that you can we even have challenges that, that you can build as a team, in the application. So if the whole entire organization says, we're going to try this week to get rid of all meetings that have more than 6 people in them, as an example, and reduce those to 3, what happens to, how many hours is in that, and how much dollars in savings? And you can actually see that in the application.
Awesome. And by the way, remind me, I have an idea for you guys after we get done with this call.
Sounds good. I look forward to it. So, it's like I said before, if we can help MSPs just make that shift, we know that this is going to become extremely popular in the next 2 or 3 years. And like anything in any market, there's some MSPs that are going to gravitate to this and they're going to jump on and they're going to do it right away. They're going to be the leaders. And then we're going to get, the majority of the MSPs. I really hope that even the ones that are typically take a little bit longer to try and see what's going in the market, that they make the transition and take a look at Produce8, because I said it's not difficult because of the infrastructure that's needed or anything like that. It's very light within any kind of business. It allows, even the smallest MSPs that has 20, 30 customers, they could be 3 or 4 employees, to really kind of go out and drive a new recurring revenue stream within their business that would have a significant impact on their overall structure.
And by the way, I assume this would work with somebody who is even just a one-person company. And I'm not talking about the MSP, I'm talking about the client, because you guys go down to that individual productivity coach level. Correct.
Like we have single users that will use our platform. You can be, a remote consultant working out of your house, and we have people that are on the application. The goal really within our program is, if you come to our website, you can buy a license. But ideally, if we identify a larger organization or company that's coming to our website, we're going to introduce them to a couple of our MSPs so they can go in and have the MSP actually go in and have the conversation with the customer. So we really want to have a model and a program that goes in and supports the MSP as they go out and go to market and introduce this. And having the ability to go in and saying, if I can go in and show them on the application, these aren't like reports that they have to bring to a customer or anything like that. The MSPs actually, when they come into our program, we're actually going to give them licensing to utilize Produce8 on their own. And so we'll actually be able to help MSPs, get all the benefits of what we talked about today, that they can actually use within their business. And that goes part and parcel with everything that comes into the program. But if an MSP actually goes in and starts showing them their own, let's say their own dashboard, or because we have a mobility app, they can show it on their phone, and they have the ability to show them, what's going on in that business, cost per meetings and cost of calls and applications. Some MSPs, what they'll do is, because we have a multi-tenant dashboard that we created for MSPs, they can manage all of their customers. They buy a subset of licenses and they can distribute those licenses the way that they want. And the value is that an MSP can actually go in, deploy this in a client's environment for 60 days, show them the value, and come back to them and saying, here's the benefits. And everybody's using the solution. And it becomes actually very sticky, because the insights, the data, and the information that they get is very interesting. And if you think of an MSP that can go to market and immediately start showing cost of meetings to a customer, there's nobody else in the marketplace that's doing that, right? And you've immediately differentiated yourself in the market. And you have not only a differentiation, but a strategic advantage.
Yeah, and it really positions them more as a technology service provider rather than just a managed IT service provider.
Absolutely. It's I call them the one-stop shop MSPs.
Well, it goes to that next level of no longer just being outsourced help desk or somebody to change out computers when they, need to be retired or something like that, or, a baseline providing AV or endpoint security or firewall, this really ups the game for an MSP to become more of a technology partner rather than just a service provider.
Absolutely. I'll give you a little story from when I was an MSP, and that's just, a few months ago. We would go in, when you think about the quarterly business reviews that we would go have with customers, we were measuring at some point in time the amount of cancellations of those quarterly business reviews. And then I started reaching out to customers and asking him, why are you always canceling? He goes, because it's the boringest meeting I've ever had. Like, I'm tired of you guys coming in here and talking about what's going on. Like, yes, I see value in you guys. You're fantastic at what you do and everything like that. But what's next? And he used to say that to me, like, what's next? And so I encourage MSPs to go in and have what's next with their customers. Have that conversation with them in terms of, what do you think is next within the business? And if you can go in and talk to a customer of yours and mention how, like, we've invested into this and productivity is really something that we're going to help you guys focus in on, I think there's a lot of value of differentiating yourselves. And I encourage MSPs, like, it's not just Produce8, but it could be other solutions as well. It's so critical for MSPs to differentiate themselves in the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, as we kind of come to an end, when talking about this, I really want to hit home on the fact of, when we talk about the executives within the business, there's a need and a value proposition for Produce8 when you go in and have a conversation with them. It's different when you get into teams, and teams I refer to as like managers, mid-level management in terms of how they operate, and then the employee experience. And I really kind of feel it's so critical to have those three components, because there's value across an organization. This isn't just an employee solution and it's just kind of like one person utilizing the information. The information and how our technology works is, to our point earlier on, it's not a monitoring solution. If I'm an employee and I'm utilizing Produce8, that's my data. I decide what are the applications I want to kind of roll into the platform and what I want to measure myself on. It's an aggregated roll up to organization analytics that gives you insight. So if I see that, I'll use an example. If my sentiment score is extremely low, it doesn't roll up to the top that Marco sentiment score is low. What it is, it just rolls up into the overall business number. And so where the value is that I think when you're utilizing a product like Produce8, what you want to try and do is create an environment across the organization that we can have conversations about how you're feeling and how do you feel, how productive you are, and do you feel you're contributing to the business? Because a lot of people don't feel that they are. And so what happens is I have the ability now to have a conversation with my manager as we go, let's say, into one-on-ones. And, if we're having those discussions, I can have an open discussion and say, you know what, the way that my week has been going over the last 2 weeks, let's take a look at it. I've been tied up in meetings, right? I'm on long calls. Nothing is really, I don't have any time for focus time. I don't have any time to do my work. So yeah, I'm not feeling great. My sentiment score is really low. Can you help me? And this allows businesses to go in and work with their people and help them out. And I think that's the difference between what Produce8 brings to the market and a monitoring tool that says, how much time are you working? Are you sitting at your desk? And we're taking pictures of you, 3 or 4 times a day to try and see if you're actually doing something. And that's a culture killer. And
Right.
we just don't believe in that. And that's the value of what we're trying to bring.
Awesome. Well, Marco, I think, it's important to let the MSPs know how they can engage with this, number one. So first of all, how do they reach out? How do they get connected? How do they learn more about how this would actually be integrated into their offering?
Yeah, they can actually, they can give us a call if they can reach us at produce8.com. They can come to our website. They can fill in some information. As you go into this, and I'll just go in through, just touch base on our offerings. We have three different offerings that an MSP can actually come in on. We have end user packs, so a 50 pack, 100, or 250. And then included in that is we have our partner center. So everything that a partner is going to need to go to market, from impact plans to marketing strategies to social media posts to anything that they're going to need to PowerPoint presentations or how to sell Produce8, are all included. We have our support, and then on our premier and elite levels, we have dedicated partner development specialists that what they do is they will work dedicated with the MSP to help them productize an offering, teach them how to go to market, explain the solution to them. And then we even have our sales teams that will actually go with the MSP that they bring on board, and our sales team will actually help the MSP sell the solution to the end user customers, right? And so that I feel is critical. We just actually did one with an MSP out of New Zealand the other day, where our salesperson was with a 50-user law firm and actually helped the MSP close the call right away on that first call. And so that's the value and the benefits of coming on board early. We have the ability to do this, and we'll be working with our partners to actually, be extremely successful as they go to market.
So when we're talking about profitability, you said the 1440 for the select there. What is, and one of the reasons I love the MSP model is usually you don't sell these things as add-ons, right? It's just part of the per user package. So technically they can sell it for whatever they want, but what is the typical markup on that 1440?
Yeah, we're seeing right now that MSPs can go to market between $25 and $30 a user. And ideally, it depends what they want to include in that offering. And so we can work with MSPs and help them create what those programs look like. It all depends, obviously, in terms of like how much value the MSP is going to bring to them. Like if they're going to help them out with, use a perfect example. They roll it out to a client and they notice that there's maybe 4 or 5 things that they're going to take a look at it. And maybe they realize meetings is a problem, right? They recognize that this organization has a meetings problem. Then depending on what the MSP wants to do, they can actually go in and help them with those impact plans. How can they make the changes? What can they do? We actually have those in place for the MSP. So it's not like they have to figure it out. Our partner development specialist will explain to an MSP, this is how it works. These are the changes that you can make in the organization, and that's how they can go in and sell it to the customer. So the MSP does have flexibility. I know some MSPs are automatically saying to us, I'm just rolling this into my managed services agreements, and I'm just going to increase it for my customer because the impact just completely outweighs any kind of risk that we have, or will actually create better retention rates by deploying this to our client. And then we have some MSPs that are looking at selling it as a standalone, as a new solution that they go in and introduce to their customers.
Yep.
And just really quickly, the value of our program is as you go in and as you buy more licenses from us, then all of your new licensing will recalculate at the lower rate as you kind of grow through our model. And I'm just showing you up to 250 today, but we do have models of 500 licenses up to 5,000 licenses as well, because we know that MSPs, some of them have some large customers that they can go in and introduce this to, so their margins will actually be very healthy.
Awesome. Well, one of the things I like about the MSP model itself is that, or I don't even want to call it MSP because then I'm going back on my own definition of MSP, but anybody who's an IT services provider, let's call it that, whether they do break fix or whether they do managed services, they can sell this, again, like you said, as a standalone or as a managed part of their offering. And I really think that is something that helps because it allows every MSP to take advantage of something like this.
I agree 100% because, again, to everything we've talked about today, this isn't heavy lifting, right? And this is such a strategic solution that they can bring to the customers that the customers understand, right? Like, how complex technology can be. Security scares everybody. They need it. They don't understand it. this is something that they can totally comprehend. This is something that everybody in the organization can actually partake in and have conversations on. And that's why I think there's so much value in it and so much stickiness.
Awesome. Well, Marco, thank you so much for joining me today, and congratulations on the new Produce8 MSP Partner Program. Really looking forward to see how many MSPs take this up, because I really think it is that next level of becoming a managed service provider for your clients.